The Dalai Lama, a man so enlightened he's basically the original woke bae. According to a Gallup poll, the Dalai Lama is actually the 6th most admired man in America. And when you mention his name to people in the street, you can see how wide...
I assume John Oliver is not going to... First of all, yeah, he mentioned me. It's kind of fucked up. But I assume this is 6 years ago. I don't think he's going to talk about his like background or like his relationship with the CIA or anything like that. But maybe he did.
A lot of respect, inspiration for what he says.
He says a lot of good quotes.
He has some really great quotes about life.
He said a lot of good things.
I guess he's a peaceful
What are those
man.
eyebrows?
He's about peace.
Okay, so he's peaceful, admired, and has some good quotes. That is pretty broad. They could be describing either the Dalai Lama or Matthew McConaughey. But watch what happens when those same people are asked a simple follow-up.
What would you say the Dalai Lama does?
Oh. Nah, I have no idea. I'm not even gonna lie.
I don't know. I'm not really sure.
He's a very important figure for Hinduism.
That's a Buddhist god, right? Nah?
No, not a god. He's a real person. He's alive.
Oh, shit.
He just said, oh shit, like he owes the Dalai Lama money. He's alive, oh shit, I've got to disappear for a while. That guy does not fuck around. Now, the Chinese government, however, have a very different view, because instead of vaguely loving the Dalai Lama, they very specifically hate him. They've referred to him as a wolf in monk's robes.
The Dalai Lama also, in one of his many trips, did literally meet with the Nexium sex cult, and I think in a pay-for-play type scheme, offered them like, what is it? Like props, I guess? I don't fucking know how any of this shit means.
That they banned her for that. It's incredible that that event happened at all. Lady Gaga was with the Dalai Lama in Indianapolis discussing yoga. That is only slightly less ridiculous than Elton John meeting Ben Bernanke on Easter Island to talk about Roombas. Now, the Chinese government's hatred of the Dalai Lama stems from its desire to maintain control of Tibet, a region in southwest China. And Tibet was something of a celebrity cause in the 1990s. There were Tibetan freedom concerts featuring the Beastie Boys, and Richard Gere even brought it up at the Oscars.
I was wondering if this kind of... if something miraculous and really kind of movie-like could happen here, where we could all kind of send love and truth and kind of sanity to Deng Xiaoping right now in Beijing, that he will take his troops and take the Chinese away from Tibet and allow these people to live as free, independent people again. So, thought. We send this thought. Send this thought out. Send this thought.
This man, at the time, I believe, was a Scientologist, right? And first and foremost, if you talk about it like gerbils in his ass, that's like Scientology cult shit. A mistake he made was escape or leave, or was he a Buddhist at the time? No, he was a Buddhist. Wait, wasn't he a fucking Scientologist? Wait, why does the Church of Scientology say that? Was it not Scientology? Where does the Richard gerbil come from? I thought this was like the rumor has endured for decades, becoming as deeply embedded in pop culture that the alleged gerbil itself. Who would have thought Gere himself would come out of it looking so enlightened? Okay, the Marilyn Manson rib-sucking gerbiling, which contains perhaps the greatest wiki image caption pairing of all time, regards the act as a rumored sexual practice. Iconic sex advice columnist remarked it in 2013. Why do people get off on this? Could it be prostate related? How did gerbils become such a popular aspect? Okay, I don't care about any of this stuff. How did this rumor happen with Richard Gere? It seems for a few reasons. One of the factors is that homophobia is often intertwined with gerbiling accusations, evidenced by the highly offensive quote. Okay. The oldest thing about me is that, Rich, the oddest thing about this to me is that Rich seems to think homosexuals used to engage in this practice frequently, which raises the question, if it was so pleasurable, why'd they stop? Frankly, I'm starting to think that Rich hasn't properly thought this through. Anyway, homophobic dummies have often accused gay men of gerbiling. But wait, you're wondering, Richard Gere isn't gay, is he? No. As far as anyone knows, he isn't. He's currently on his third marriage, all of which have been to women, but for years there were rumors that he was gay because he gained fame early on a Broadway production of Bent, playing a gay Holocaust victim. As his fame rose, rumors continued to swirl, only fueled by the fact that he refused to dignify such questions with an answer, saying once, cosmically, there's nothing wrong with being heterosexual, homosexual, or omnisexual. The accusation is meaningless, and whether it's true or false is nobody's business. Oh, so he was like too woke. He was one of those, Hasan, you're right-wing. You're really out of pocket today. Nothing you said about Gere is true. Your right-wing arc is really taking off today. Brother, me fucking covering where these false allegations about Richard Gere came from and remembering has absolutely nothing to do with me being right-wing. Are you okay? Sylvester Stallone thinks that Richard Gere is still mad at him for starting the whole gerbil in the well story. Gere continues to harbor a grudge, if not a rodent, because Gere believes that it was Sly who started that ridiculous urban legend about Gere and the gerbil. He's the deal. Gere and Stallone were on the set of 1974's The Lords of the Flatbush, and the two actors got in a tiff over lunch one day. Something about chicken grease, Sly's thigh, and a hot dog, whereupon Stallone elbowed him in the side of the head. The tension between the two actors became so fevered that Gere got kicked off the film, which still angers him today. Apparently, to this day, he seriously dislikes me. To this day, he seriously dislikes me, says Sly, who adds for the record that I did not start the rodent rumor. Gere's rep had no comment. Could Jennifer Lopez and Jim Carrey be the latest high-profile converse of Scientology by Tom Cruise? Wait, what? These are unrelated. What the fuck? This is completely unrelated. Okay, well, the rodent rumor had nothing to do with Scientology. Richard Gere had nothing to do with Scientology. I apologize. That was wrong. I thought that he was like Scientologist, left the church, and then like a common practice with the church. A common practice with the Scientology church is that they just like have a lot of shit about you, and they just basically spread lies about you. How many people have you told this to? None, because why the fuck would I ever talk about Richard Gere? I just know it as like a meme that is not correct. I'm with you, man. I also thought the gerbil story was a smear campaign started from the Scientology stuff when he tried to leave or something. Yeah, I just don't know why. I don't know where that came from. Like, I don't know where the Scientology thing came from. Does that make sense? Like, I always knew the gerbling and the ass thing was like a false made up rumor. I just thought that it was made up by the Church of Scientology, and I was wrong. The gerbling thing sounds like such a dumb lie that just kept going on and on, but there's a long-term psych hospital here in Detroit called Walter Reuther, and about 10 years ago they had a rat problem. One patient would do this with the rats anytime he found them. Jesus Christ. I've lived in Detroit my whole life, and I'm just learning about this. Why the fuck would you know about that? Anyway. All right, so they just made it up. We knew that he had made it up, but I didn't know where the rumor actually came from. Let's get back to
We send this
John
thought. We send it out right now. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, there's been a mistake. The thoughts are actually supposed to be sent to the producers of Moonlight. This is not a joke. Moonlight, these thoughts are for you. There's been a horrible mistake. Moonlight, take the thoughts.
Oh, God, these are...
There is a lot about Tibet that you might not actually know. For a start, it's larger than you probably think. China say it's this area, but Tibetan exiles will say it's even larger, encompassing an area that is roughly a quarter of China. So it's very big in a confusing way, which, and this is true, is also how director Lars von Trier characterized Willem Dafoe's dick. Seriously.
That's
he
real.
told reporters
that is
it's
real. Oh, my God, I can't believe we got a fucking Willem Dafoe's fat cock reference in this. Dude! It's real. That's his cock is fat, and this quote is real.
Big, everybody got very confused when they saw it.
He is one of the few people. Please try being civil. Absolutely not. When I'm talking about Willem Dafoe's fat pee-pee, I will not be civil. You will not stop me, okay? I've talked about this before. They said it was so like monstrously large that they had to use a separate cock for the scene. They had to use a prosthetic cock for the scene so that it didn't take up all of the scene, basically. Yeah. Confusingly large. Okay? That's awesome. I mean, that is so fucking cool. Seriously. You're the weirdest movie buff out there? Yeah, I have not watched The Antichrist, but think about this. Think about this. It literally it's a movie called The Antichrist. Okay? And they thought it's like unacceptable to show in that movie. Where a scene demands the character show his cock. Okay? That's insane. There's a gif of him dancing across the screen naked. I can confirm it's massive.
What I'm saying is, Tibet is the Willem Dafoe's dick of planet Earth. It is surprisingly large. The point is, China invaded Tibet in 1950, and ever since they've imposed strict controls on the institutions of Tibetan Buddhism there. Temples and monasteries have been destroyed, and hundreds of thousands of Tibetans have been killed. And things inside Tibet are still grim. When Freedom House scored countries and territories for political rights and civil liberties...
This is what I mean. It's like fucking... It's going to be not a very charitable interpretation. If you want to know what the other side's perspective would be, there you go. The communists liberated the people of Tibet from serfdom. They were then given land and exempt from taxation. People burned their slave debts and leases from their former monk and landlord owners. Before this, slaves never owned any of the harvest they produced. But Freedom House and the Western liberal media will cover this as were there deaths, of course, for the record, but people will cover this in the West in an identical capacity to any other communist revolution like Cuba. If you look at the Cuban Revolution, literally it's on similar terms. Another left-wing shooting today. Not nice to say, but the pattern seems quite worrying. What? Bro. That's insane. The only pattern you should worry about is the top of the hour ad break, stupid. Especially because you're now banned, so you can't even subscribe for $5 or for free with the Twitch Prime. By connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, where you get one free Prime subscription a month that you can use on your favorite broadcaster. Hopefully that's me. Okay. But others, fear not, you may get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Use it on your favorite broadcaster again. If you aren't lucky, you can just get it on your own. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Oh, damn, we got a hype train and everything. They're trying to insinuate the shooter is trans because pronouns in the bio. Yeah, I saw this. I was going to cover it, but I don't know if we'll have time. We'll probably cover it afterwards. White supremacist Jack Posobiec is currently pointing out that the cisgender shooter in Louisville, Kentucky has pronouns in his bio, which is fucking insane. It's like a cishet white guy. What the fuck? Immediately, though, if it's a cishet white guy, like, he must be a leftist. Like, I don't fucking know anything. I don't know anything about the shooter, but it's odd that they're like, Sakura Gore, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. And it's weird, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Allowing 15 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. Replay it back. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs as well. This is from The Guardian. Until 1959, when trying to crack down on Tibetan rebels and the Dalai Lama fled to northern India, around 98% of the population was enslaved in serfdom. The Drepung Monastery on the outskirts of Lhasa was one of the world's largest landowners with 185 manors, 25,000 serfs, 300 pastures, and 16,000 herdsmen. High-ranking lamas and secular landowners imposed crippling taxes, forced boys into monastic slavery, and pilfered most of the country's wealth, torturing disobedient serfs by gouging out their eyes or severing their hamstrings. things were not very great in Tibet, as far as I understand. Anyway, let's continue.
Tibet came in second worst behind Syria and ahead of both Somalia and North Korea. The whole territory is a gross human rights violation.
I do love when like Western media looks at something like Freedom House and their rankings and looks at like how insane those rankings look like, okay? And then go, it's so insane. It's like, yeah, maybe that should tell you something about like what the motivation is for why these things exist to begin with. But instead of being cynical about what you're looking at, you're like, oh no, dude, this is it. Hasan, please talk about your Twitter beef with that girl on Twitter. Take a week off. Okay. We already patched it. You're too late. We already talked about it in the beginning. We've moved on from it. You're extinguishing the idea of Tibet, censoring anything to do with it, and breeding out native Tibetans are all actions of a just liberator. This is why people think you're a China apologist. I don't think China is a just liberator, but I like to look at the present material conditions pre any kind of action that that America's foreign nations have engaged in. Okay? He was not aware at the time and was peddling the status quo, or just paid to peddle the State Department narrative. No, there is no. Why the fuck would you ever look beyond? Why would you ever look beyond what the fuck? Why would you ever look beyond something like the Freedom House Index? Like, you see that and then you go, that's fine. Opposing the invasion doesn't mean you should support the previous oppressor. Yeah, this is like, I mean, I'm in a permanent state where people are like saying I'm overly critical and eat up like liberal propaganda against China, and also the number one China apologist on the planet. Okay? Like, a lot of these things are significantly more complicated. There's always a better solution than what actually happened. Okay? Than the actions that a fucking, state took. A state that utilized superior military power. Okay? CJT Soccer, thank you for the 5 the subs. Anyway, regardless, the idea that like the prior situation in Tibet was better is silly. It's like looking at the Cuban Revolution and then thinking about like the death toll during the Cuban Revolution and then not factoring in the prior government formation, like what Cuba looked like under the dictatorship of Batista, which was infinitely more cruel than any number of things that the Cuban Revolution could have done, or who those deaths were. Exactly.
Interestingly, another way that Lars von Trier has described Willem Dafoe's penis. And perhaps the clearest sign of just how bad conditions are is the fact that since early 2009, 146 Tibetans have self-immolated in Tibet and China, setting themselves on fire in protest, to which the Chinese police have been less than sympathetic.
When the Lobsang Jiang was on fire, Chinese police came and they caught him.
Bro, this is what do you call it? This is literally like, how do I describe it? I mean, this is some shit that you would see on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, it's like all those fucking stupid. Come on, man. You're a 29-month subscriber. Take a fucking week off, you fucking dumbass. Like, you're not a gray name in the chat. Okay? This is basically some shit that you would fucking see on Twitter about, like, Chinese dick-sucking, dick-milking factories or some shit.
Beat him because Lobsang Jiang is on the fires. So the police clothes got on fire. So later, the police are demanding the family to Lobsang Jiang's family that they need a compensation for burning of their own clothes.
Well, every part of that is fucking horrifying. And China is unlikely to loosen its grip on the region. Tibet has incredibly rich resources, from gold and lithium to rivers supplying hydroelectric power and water to over 1 billion people. So they are very sensitive to any perceived threat to their control, which brings us back to the Dalai Lama. Traditionally,
Hey, we had a climate scientist burn himself up last year in D.C. Yeah, the media didn't cover it, but it doesn't matter. Like, we were talking about the tongue thing, but now we're talking about the Dalai Lama, or at least John Oliver's take on
both
the
a
Dalai Lama.
spiritual and political leader of Tibetan Buddhists, sort of a cross between a pope and a president. A popesident, if you will. But you shouldn't, so please don't. China has done everything they can over the years to diminish his power. He even fled Tibet in 1959 under fear of arrest, and he hasn't been back since, an escape that was reported at the time by the most British man who has ever lived.
The young Dalai Lama, revered by his people as a living Buddha, was reported under arrest by the Reds, but according to other sources is safely in hiding. One clear fact: Red tyranny is not wanted by these intensely religious people.
Yes, damn that unwanted creeping red tyranny. Down with those thieving imperialists. And good night to Her Majesty's subjects in Bahrain, Maldives, Rhodesia, Jamaica, Barbados, Kenya, and Uganda. Nighty-night, sleepy tight. And so...
Okay, I don't think he's going to talk about the CIA Tibetan program in this video, it seems. I like a lot of you said, oh, he's got HasanAbi head writers and whatnot, but I don't think so. The CIA Tibetan program was nearly a 2 decades long anti-Chinese covert operation that focused on Tibet, which consisted of political action, propaganda, paramilitary, and intelligence operations. None of this will probably come as a surprise to you if you know how America operates. So, you know, exactly. The fuck are the CIA doing there? Excuse me. What do you think the CIA is doing in Tibet? It's anti-China. It's anti-communist China. It's anti-communism. That's what the fuck they were doing there, just like they were doing this exact same thing everywhere around the fucking planet. That's how it is. That's how it always has worked. And that's how it always will work. The goal of the program was to keep political concept of an autonomous Tibet alive within Tibet and among several foreign nations. Although it was formally assigned to the CIA, it was nevertheless closely coordinated with several other U.S. government agencies, such as the Department of State and the Department of Defense. Previous operations had aimed to strengthen various isolated Tibetan resistance groups, which eventually led to the creation of a paramilitary force on the Nepalese border, consisting of approximately 2,000 men. By February 1964, the projected annual cost for all the CIA Tibetan operations had exceeded $1.7 million. Now, let me tell you something. That's cookies. War on terror, $6 trillion, $7 trillion. Think about that. They could have been using a lot more funds, but I guess $1.7 million for the time, pretty good. The program ended after President Nixon visited China to establish, this is why Nixon is a Maoist, as everyone knows, famously. The based Maoist Third World, Richard Nixon, went to China and established closer relations in 1972. And the Dalai Lama did not like this decision and criticized it, saying it proved wholeheartedly that the U.S. never did it to help the people of Tibet. No shit. Hello. In the fields of political action and propaganda, the CIA's Tibetan program was aimed at lessening the influence, capabilities, and territorial scope of the government of China. Particularly in the United States, feared communist involvement in the region. A 1957 report on logistical issues indicated increasing trepidation that the Chinese would escalate their communist presence in Tibet. The spread of communism in the international community was a huge concern for the United States. The CIA considered China's interest in Tibet to be a threat for multiple reasons. A 1950 memorandum noted that some of the reasons stem from a notion of bolstered sovereignty and a motivation to forge a bulwark against a possible invasion by Western powers in India. However, they also believed that China would use Tibet as a base of attacks against India and the Middle East in the Third World War. Therefore, intelligence officials declared action as a preventative measure should their worst case scenario, World War III, unfold. St. Circus was the cover name for the training of Tibetan guerrillas on the island of Saipan and at Camp Hale in Colorado. St. Barnum was a cover name for airlifting of CIA agents, military supplies, and support equipment to Tibet. St. Bailey was a cover name for a classified propaganda campaign. Chinese-Indian relations also played an important role in framing the CIA's operations. Due to Tibet's geographic location between the two countries, it was strategically important. The CIA released numerous reports assessing relations. Now, the reason why we know this is because the CIA oftentimes, what I like to call is a flex, will release this stuff later down the line. Like, they literally will, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years passes by. It's already done. They already did the propaganda. It's already solidified. It's made permanent. And then people, like, basically intrinsically in their fucking hearts are like, no, this is my real thing. This is my shit. I want to fucking fight it. They've already done it. And there's also obviously legitimate need and interest in emancipation as well on the ground. That always happens. No country is monolithic in that regard. Some people are going to be like, no, this is good. This is better for prosperity. Other people, perhaps even a larger group of people, are going to be like, fuck that. I don't want that shit at all. Okay? Although, having said that, in many respects, when you're looking at American involvement in color revolutions around the world, what you always should try to factor in is the voice of the voiceless. Because whether you agree with it or not, historically speaking, given the fact that all of the peasants, serfs, slaves have oftentimes been armed in their original fight for emancipation from colonialism, from dictatorships that are backed by the Western world, those guys don't get a lot of play in the motherfucking Western media. No one ever goes up to a Chavista and asks them how they feel about the literacy rates or the fact that they have fucking hospitals in their farmland. Rather than, they go to the fucking Chamber of Commerce. Oftentimes, these guys are already involved with the West because they're business leaders, and they fucking talk to the media regularly and are directly involved with the State Department. Sometimes sometimes when we talk about, for example, especially as it pertains to like Venezuela, they will literally put the head of the Chamber of Commerce in a position of power immediately after trying to do a fucking coup d'etat like they did in Venezuela. One of many. Examples. Just simply one. Okay? So that is something that you always have to understand. You can make up your mind on it on your own. I don't personally have a stake in this or a dog in the fight. I'm just simply giving you what I have seen time and time again through everything that I have read. Okay? It always fucking works like this. There's always plenty of people that you can go and talk to, but the voiceless people, oftentimes, the ones that are no longer slaves or serfs or liberated through, violent revolution in many respects, those guys don't ever get heard. You only hear about, the guys who lost their property. Now, what do I mean by that? We have an identical circumstance domestically that we can point to. Okay? Look no further than the motherfucking South. America was built domestically under the same exact fucking principles. Literally look to the way that slavery is covered in the South and how that emancipation, that movement, okay, and how it was received in the Reconstruction era and why it wasn't perfect and they didn't go far enough, how the federal government fucked up and didn't go far enough, has created these contemporary problems. You don't hear about the perspective of the freed men and women. You hear about the perspective, in a lot of instances, okay, of the slave owners and how their lives were uprooted and how devastating that was, the war of northern aggression. So just understand. I'm not saying this to be like, this is directly analogous to the Tibet and it's actually good and that China did great things in Tibet overall. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just simply stating that covering affairs like this from an entirely one-sided perspective, okay, is not ever going to be good. But also, there are certain things that you can always point to. one simple trick is look to who was liberated and how when you want to understand that. Okay, when you want to understand like whether or not the material conditions are better off after this subsequent invasion. Okay. Another thing that you can always look to, who stands to gain from whatever kind of like counter-revolutionary movement. Another thing that you can always look to is not the reception of said actions from the Western media, but I guess, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. Hasan, this isn't the take you think it is. What? What do you mean? Oh, one final aspect of this, and this is actually super critical of, you know, the Chinese government, just like I'm very critical of the American government. One thing that you should always never forget is that big governments will do big government shit. What do I mean by that? States are always going to enact violent principles, okay? States will always be violent. State violence is considered the norm. That's why you say non-state actors, you call non-state actors terrorists, right? It's a different classification. Violent paramilitaries acting at the behest of or acting against the state are considered terrorists. It's a sub-classification. If a cop throws a tear gas at you, that's not considered an act of violence because the state has a monopoly on violence. If you kick the tear gas canister back, or if you use a leaf blower against that tear gas canister, you have now engaged in an act of violence against the state. So never forget that. Now, what I mean by that is the Chinese government always going to fucking behave in a violent way whenever they're engaging in acts of, in their opinion, liberty? Of course. Of course they are. And they always will. That's just how it goes. That's how big government works. It's just, what is the purpose of said violence? What are the outcomes of said violence? And whether or not we are looking at this through the lens of whether or not we're looking at this through an objective lens. So when I talk about like even contemporary history, I'm giving you the details. You can make up your own mind on it, okay? But there's always still going to be a lot of violent actions that the state has engaged in. Remember, the Chinese government in that situation, okay, certainly was engaging in violent acts. Anyway, let's continue. CIA monitored the relations. The CIA worked to strengthen the Tibetans against the Chinese communist efforts. To do so, the United States planned to issue asylum to the Dalai Lama and his supporters. Some resistance fighters took their own lives when captured by the Chinese to avoid torture. The Tibetan resistance was promised weaponry and resources from the West to continue their resistance against the Chinese. Knowing resistance was unlikely to succeed, they accepted Chinese annexation. Okay? This is George Kennan, one of the architects of this Cold War. Furthermore, we have about 50% of the world's wealth, but only 6.3% of the population. This disparity is particularly great as between ourselves and the peoples of Asia. In this situation, we cannot fail to be the object of envy and resentment. Our real task in the coming period is to devise a pattern of relationships which will permit us to maintain this position of disparity without positive detriment to our national security. To do so, we will have to dispense with all sentimentality and daydreaming, and our attention will have to be concentrated everywhere on our immediate national objectives. We need not deceive ourselves that we can afford today the luxury of altruism and world benefaction. This is, admitting that none of American acts of international intervention ever come with altruistic desires. Okay? It's basically to say, in order to secure America's position as the global dominant force, we have to be anywhere and everywhere at all times And we are not doing this out of the kindness of our hearts. We are not doing this for any kind of like real purpose of emancipation. Okay? It's just basically saying the quiet part out loud. It's the thing that I say all the time, and people get very mad at me when they misconstrue. Okay? That's it.
For over 50 years, the Dalai Lama has lived in exile in India, and he's lived quite a life. He's met with the last 4 presidents, and when he was a child, FDR gave him a beautiful Patek Philippe pocket watch, which he still has to this day. And George W. Bush gave him an even greater gift by painting his portrait, this portrait. And I give Bush's skills as an artist.
What a terrible dude. That's a big L. That's a big L for the Dalai Lama.
Not bad for a 5-year-old.
Dalai L Lama.
Now, the Dalai Lama officially stepped down from running the Tibetan government in exile in 2011, but he is still of profound importance to the Tibetan people as a spiritual leader and a figurehead. And here is where this story gets absolutely amazing, because he's 81 years old, so thoughts have inevitably turned to his next reincarnation. But it turns out there's a bit of a problem with that, and let me explain. Broadly speaking, when the Dalai Lama dies, he reincarnates as a child somewhere on Earth. And traditionally, a key person in the process of finding him is someone called the Panchen Lama. And when the Panchen Lama dies, the Dalai Lama plays a similar role in finding him, and so on and so on. They're basically playing a Buddhist version of hide and seek. So the 9th Panchen Lama helped identify the current Dalai Lama, who in turn identified this 6-year-old boy as the Panchen Lama. But this is where it starts to get tricky, because that boy has not been seen in more than 20 years.
These are the last known pictures of Gedun Choki Nima, the boy chosen to be Panchen Lama. The Chinese authorities rejected his appointment, arrested the boy and his family.
It's true. China kidnapped a 6-year-old and no one has heard from him since. Although just 2 years ago, a senior Chinese official said he is being educated, living a normal life, growing up healthily, and does not wish to be disturbed. Which is a little suspicious, because it sounds like the kind of thing a former child star's publicist would scream into a phone. She's growing up healthy, living a normal life, and those track marks on her arms are just where they inject the vitamins. She's fine. She's fine. But China didn't stop at just stealing the Panchen Lama. They had another trick up their sleeve.
In an attempt to discredit the Dalai Lama's choice of one of Tibet's top Buddhist spiritual leaders, Chinese officials used a 200-year-old ceremony to name their own Panchen Lama.
Yes, they made their own fake Panchen Lama. They basically counterfeited a religious leader like a knockoff handbag. That doesn't say coach, that says cough. And China's tactic...
Ben Shapiro defending Harlan Crow and Hitlerian artifacts. Love that for him. Just a omega cuck, dude. Big time. Yeah, it's...
here are obvious. If they control the Panchen Lama, they can use him to pick a new Dalai Lama who might, completely coincidentally, be very favourable to the Chinese government. Meanwhile, the Dalai Lama, understandably, is pretty pissed off about this.
One thing that I want to make clear, that as far as my own rebirth is concerned, the final authority is myself, no one else. And obviously, not Chinese communist.
Yeah, that is some forceful language too. He's basically saying they can...
Why are we treating like the Lama is something real? I mean, it's just like, it's the same as any other religion, man. You just got to go along with it. I don't know, because like the alternative is just like being a fucking annoying Reddit atheist. It's just the same, honestly. My principle on this has always been consistent. It's that, like, as long as they're not utilizing their religion for nefarious purpose, as long as people are not utilizing religion for nefarious purpose, for literally just like, justifying subjugation of humans, pedophilia, anti-LGBT shit, you know what I mean? Like, or doing a child tongue sucking, like the Dalai Lama, it's fine. That's the unacceptable part about it, is that like a homie is running around being like, I'm the Dalai Lama, suck my tongue, please, to a child. So that's the part that's like really fucked up, okay? They aren't using it for nefarious purposes because they have no real power. That'd be like if the Saudis were exiled. No, their power, I think, comes from being a beacon of like anti-Chinese sentiment in the Western world, I think. So we don't have to respect Christianity in the U.S. No, I still say this all the time. I mean, I don't have a problem with like ecumenical Marxists or people who are Christian and they have similar perspectives to what I do. It's just that, as long as those people aren't like, abortion should be illegal or whatever, who gives a fuck? Yeah. No, you do not. Wait, what do you mean? I have quite literally talked routinely about how Christianity has been used as a tool of oppression in a way to justify white supremacist slavery, but also a tool of liberation. Okay? Like liberation theology, a tool of revolution. It's what you do with religion that matters. Okay?
Make that decision over my dead body, except, specifically not that. He's now actually saying that he will either not reincarnate as the Dalai Lama at all, or if he does, it won't be inside Chinese-controlled Tibet, it will be somewhere else, which is incredible, because that means that when he dies, we could plausibly wind up with 2 rival Dalai Lamas.
It is odd, though. I'm just saying that, like, so if the Dalai Lama's, like, reincarnation could be anywhere, like, what if it was born in fucking China? Like, what's up with that? Could that not be a thing? Like, straight up? Or is that not a thing that can happen? Or worse, Florida? Oh, God, that would be horrible. What is this? Still love you, by the way. You're the real reason I'm open-minded and engaged in direct action today. Can't thank you enough. I don't know, maybe I'm just feeling some 18 brain rot coming on.
And the already fraught situation in Tibet could spiral out of control. And for the time being, there is really only one person who can fill you in on what is happening in the Dalai Lama's head. But he lives in India, and that is a 14-hour flight away. And the reason I know that is I went to speak to the Dalai Lama in India. Enjoy.
Yes, I travelled to the Himalayan foothills of Dharamsala, India, a journey that involved considerably more uphill walking, cows and monkey traffic than I'd been led to believe. All to talk with the Dalai Lama about China, conditions in Tibet and what comes next for him.
Your Holiness, it is an honour to speak to you. May I say, Tashi Delek.
Tashi Delek, thank you.
How is my pronunciation?
I think very good.
In my defence, I just started learning Tibetan 40 seconds ago. So let's talk about China, because the Chinese government...
Is he going to ask to suck his tongue or not?
Absolutely hates you, don't they?
Yes.
Publicly, one government official said you're a wolf wrapped in monk's robes, and photos of you are forbidden in many places. You don't, to me, look like an evil wolf.
They described me as a demon.
You're a demon?
Oh.
Yeah.
Then I immediately reacted, yes, I'm demon with horn.
Yeah, because that's your classic demon, right?
Yes.
I think that's, when they look at you, that's what they see.
Oh, whatever they want to say, that's their freedom. I have no negative feeling. I just feel a love like that. I practice.
Okay, am I crazy? Like no matter what, okay, no matter what, like John Oliver is talking to a dude who literally owned 6,000 slaves, like up until 1959. Like, isn't that a bit odd? Like, I feel like I can't just like glaze over that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, okay? It's fucking weird. It's odd to just be like, I'm talking to a man right now who, like, in his adult life, had 6,000 slaves, dog. That's a lot of slaves, homie. Like, you're not going to ask him about that at all? Like, you don't think that that's, like, in any way, shape, or form pertinent information to bring up in a fucking 18-minute video? I actually don't get it. Like, sure, the Chinese government is oppressive, okay? It's oppressive. But he had 6,000 slaves, you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? Homie said, dude, it was 60 years ago. Yeah, dude, I know. Yo, not to correct you, but 6,000, but in this context, the situation is a lot different. Bro, I'm just saying, like, there was, first of all, he was going to continue having them if a particular thing didn't happen. I think you know what that particular thing is. Okay? It's called annexation of Tibet by the Chinese government. Okay? That's the thing that happened. That's why he doesn't have 6,000 slaves anymore. Okay? But, like, I just don't. I don't know. I don't know how to, like, the point of contention about serfdom in Tibet, okay? The point of contention about serfdom in Tibet by Western academics is that it's the same as the tongue-sucking thing. They basically say that, like, it's different. It's not chattel slavery. It's not. Of course it's not. Obviously, that's uniquely cruel, okay? But, like, still not great. You know what I mean? Like, it's wild to, like, talk to an individual that had 6,000 serfs, okay? And just, like, not really bring that up at all, as though that was not a thing, who did not give that up on his own out of the kindness of his heart. He wasn't like, damn, you know, on my fucking whichever 1,000th reincarnation, or not the 1,000th, but I guess, like, what is it? How many reincarnations has this guy had so far? 14th. Okay. That's it? It doesn't extend beyond that? Are you guys making it up? I don't understand. How long has this been around? I don't know enough. You haven't ended the video yet, dude? True. He's the 14th, but the first one is the 14th century. He's at 52 in total. That's been recorded by Fox Sports.
See, taking others' anger, suspicion, distrust, and give them patience, tolerance, and compassion. I practice that.
But it seems the Chinese government are particularly good at taking your positivity, turning it back into negativity and oppression of the Tibetan people, and they hand it back to you as it was.
Yes.
Just outside the Dalai Lama's temple is a local memorial honouring Tibetans who've self-immolated in protest against Chinese oppression, acts that put him in a very difficult position.
This is a hard question. The self-immolation that has happened.
The other part about it is that, like, it's not even like he was a fucking whole-ass adult when he had the slaves either. Like, you could just be like, I was a child. I think this practice was, like, not, you know. He was 24. Still, I mean, you know, still kind of young, right? I think. For the most part, he was a kid, okay? Up until the invasion. I'm just trying to give him like a out, you know what I mean? Oh, I'm sorry. If you're going to do a Notes app apology about tongue sucking, he could just be like, oh, sorry, I didn't know it was bad. I was a kid. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, let's continue.
140 Tibetans have burned themselves. It is very, very sad.
Indeed, yes.
Why is it hard for you to definitively tell them to stop doing it?
This is, I find, a very difficult sort of situation. Right from the beginning, when I first heard that, firstly, I expressed my sort of sadness. Then, meantime, if I say their action is wrong, then their family, they feel very sad. One of their family member did something against the Dalai Lama's wish.
Right.
I don't want to create that. Then certainly I cannot support that because of the act of killing. From Buddhist viewpoint, it's a self-killing, not good. So therefore, my position is very, very difficult. So then, best thing is remain silent, keep quiet.
The Dalai Lama is painfully aware how powerful his words are, and he occasionally uses them in targeted and sometimes surprisingly specific ways, like this example which he offered up out of nowhere.
One of my previous visits to Mongolia, you see, they took a lot of vodka. The Russians sort of hard sort of...
They like a drink. Yeah, vodka.
Then I suggested drink much less vodka.
Yeah, they love to hear that.
Instead of that, you see, they are traditional sort of drink horse milk.
Wait, hold on.
Horse milk.
Wait, you tried to wean them off vodka by giving them horse milk?
Oh, yes. They follow.
What?
They really follow. Since then, you see, I think a majority.
Did the Dalai Lama take credit for a tradition that definitely is much, much longer than his lifetime, okay, by claiming he taught the Mongolians to drink horse milk instead? That is... Listen. I'm not going to get all Turanist here, okay? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to hit you with some fucking Turanist shit, okay? But, like, let me be very clear, okay? Horse milk clears the Dalai Lama, okay? It does. It absolutely does. From the steppes of Asia, Turkic tribes that were nomadic have been drinking horse milk in perpetuity. Okay? This is not something that was a mere suggestion that was brought up and implemented post prior incarnation, reincarnation Dalai Lama. I'm just going to say it. I don't think that he should take credit for that. Anyway, let's continue.
Of Mongolian.
He means in a past life, dude. Yeah, I know. Well, that doesn't count. It still doesn't matter. I'm saying, like, the Mongolians drinking horse milk literally is longer than the Dalai Lama as a concept's existence.
No longer any drink.
Hold on, that is a huge claim. You cured Mongolia of alcoholism.
Yes.
Using horse milk.
Yes.
Yeah, not to labour the point, I'm just concerned I would see horse milk and I'd think, oh, that came from a horse.
I think that's illogical.
No, I get it. I know. He's saying, like, in a past life, I told the Mongolians to drink horse milk instead of alcohol, except it doesn't matter because, like, the concept of drinking horse milk goes way beyond the concept of the fucking Dalai Lama, okay? That's why I'm calling cap on it, okay? Domesticated horse used for travel and agriculture originated in Central Asia. He's taking credit for 5,000 years of history. Exactly. It was one of the most significant reasons for how dominant the nomadic tribes were originally in changing the course of fucking history and altering the course of history, because every part of the horse was utilized, including horse milk, including, like meat preservation techniques and shit like that. I'm sorry. I'm going to act like, I'm not going to sit here and act like this is something that the Dalai Lama could take credit for. Dalai Lama was actually encouraging people to drink more arag, a fermented brew made from mare's milk, Mendy says. It's a popular traditional beverage that has set rules in nomadic horse culture going back thousands of years and has an alcohol content similar to hard cider. The idea is that consuming something less intoxicating than vodka, which is commonly drunk people, might be better off.
Anyway. What's the differences? Cow milk.
He didn't invent it. He didn't invent it. He's just saying he suggested it.
It's out of a cow. The other, I don't know how you get it out of a horse. Finally.
he was advocating for harm reduction. Okay, he was basically pushing for he was going up to fucking heroin addicts and telling them to take Suboxone instead.
We were having fun, and I knew just how to keep the party going.
Let's talk about a lighter subject, death. You are going to die, and when you do, it's going to be a massive problem because there are issues regarding your reincarnation regarding China.
I do not much concern about that. My main concern is well-being of 7 billion human beings and then preservation of rich Buddhist tradition, which we kept.
But you're intertwined with that.
No. It's an individual person, not much important. You know.
Right, but you're the Dalai Lama.
But Buddhism, over 2,600 years, still very much alive.
So do you think you might be the last Dalai Lama?
Very possible.
You do?
Yes.
You might be it.
If I become last Dalai Lama, I feel very happy.
Why, because you were a good one?
Oh, yes. I may say quite intelligent.
You're calling yourself intelligent, are you?
I think
so. A little bit of arrogance there as well. But if you don't resolve your reincarnation issue, are you not worried that China will appoint their own Dalai Lama and he may not speak like you're speaking now?
That also, if may I say so,
yeah,
that's also, you see, one of the foolish act. Short-sighted.
China.
Without using human brain properly. It's harmful.
That is a guaranteed way to calm the Chinese government down, to tell them they're not using the human brain properly.
I told them, our brain usually, you see, have the ability to create common sense. The Chinese hardliners, in their brain, that part of the brain is missing.
Zing.
But I think the Chinese leaders, Chinese communists, they are very much concerned about the image of China.
I'm happy to sit here and criticize China with you because I know the consequences for me are not necessarily as bad as they are for you.
So I wish, you see, they call me demon. So I want another demon. So you become demon.
No. You can't transfer. You can't reincarnate the demon into me.
Yes.
No. Don't make me a demon. No. You can't do. You cannot do that.
You know,
can he do that?
As I mentioned, you see.
Oh no. This is not how I wanted this interview to go.
So the Dalai Lama seems determined to keep his reincarnation plans private for the time being, leaving millions of Tibetans waiting for an answer. And as our time drew to a close, I wanted to cement our new friendship.
You were given a watch by President Roosevelt. Is that true?
Yes, true. At that time, I think one...
So Dalai Lama seems like a real prick in his area? No, not at all. I don't agree. I think he comes across as super chill. Like, if you were to tell me this guy had slaves and also recently wanted to suck a child, wanted to get a child to suck his tongue, I'd be like, no shot, come on. He's like kind of funny. He's like a chill guy.
Kasa, Patek Philippe.
Patek Philippe, a beautiful watch.
Pocket watch.
Right. Well, I have a special...
He's a Buddhist. They're chill as fuck. Kind of looks like good PR for him. Yeah, no shit. Of course he's good PR for him.
Special gift for you. It is not a beautiful watch from a president, but it is a special watch from me. Here it is. It's a calculator watch. Right? Roosevelt may have given you a fancy watch, but that is water resistant.
Wonderful. Thank you. Roosevelt watch, I think, old-fashioned.
Yeah.
Now this new fashion.
Well, not so much new-fashioned as from the 1980s.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you much.
Thank you. My demon friend. It was an honor.